Hey, what up guys, it's your boy Nick. Today I'm really excited to talk about 10 tips for new and beginning fursuit makers. Fursuit making can be an incredibly lucrative career or even just an exciting hobby for people of all ages. Beyond the basics of sewing, hot gluing, and general patterning, this craft has a fair learning curve that I would say takes at least a little while to really find your style. Even just getting started can be painstaking, but I cannot tell you how worth it is in the end. There are dozens of tutorials on how to make everything from feet paws to kimono eyes, but I wanted to be able to give you guys tips a lot of us had to learn through practice. But I'm really excited I was able to get everyone here today, so without further ado, let's get into it.
Hello everybody, my name is Benji, also known as Toy Serval or Toy Serval Suits on Instagram. Today I'm here with tip number 1, which is materials and how to get them for your fursuit. Joann's Fabric and Craft Store is a great place for materials. At Joann's you can get mesh for your eyes, you can get paint to paint your eyes, you can also get sewing notions such as your needles, your thread, and everything like that. You can also get glue sticks and glue guns for when you want to glue your fur or your face to the head base that you have made for your fursuit head. Joann's also has a variety of fabrics such as minky and fleece that you can use for the inside of your ears, your nose, your teeth, or your tongue. For faux fur, you can get them at a variety of websites online. Some websites are How Fabrics, Fursuit Supplies, Mendel's, and Big Z Fabric. I highly suggest How Fabrics and Fursuit Supplies. Fursuit Supplies has a wide variety of colors and types of faux fur for your project. How Fabrics faux fur is high quality, and the way they cut their fur, the edges aren't trimmed or cut off so you don't lose any fur in your yardage that you buy. There are other materials that you may need, such as plastic for your eyes, whether they're 2D or 3D. You'll also need other materials that you can get at Joann's or Michael's, such as the stiff eyeliner for your eyes. That should be the basic necessities you need for your fursuit materials. And on to trick 2.
Hi, I'm Forgetful Faye and I'm the owner of Forgetful Faye Fursuits. I'll be doing tip number 3, which is learning to sew. I've come across a lot of beginner makers who start making fursuits before they've learned to sew. Now, this is possible, but in my opinion, it's like running before you can walk. Sewing skills are important in many parts of the suit, not just seaming together the fur. It helps for things like mouths, lining, teeth, etc. I use sewing in almost every part of my fursuit making. Sewing seams instead of gluing is important for making your suits look professional. Not only is it not very durable over time, but hot glue dries hard, and it can be bulky and messy, which changes the overall outcome of your suit's appearance. Sewing your seams keeps them flat, soft, and most importantly, if done correctly, durable. I recommend first learning the blanket stitch and the back stitch. These stitches are both incredibly strong, and if you use a special kind of thread called quilting thread, they're even stronger. Quilting thread is frankly more likely to hurt your finger while sewing than it is to break. Additionally, after mastering hand sewing, which can be practiced by using the cheap discount fabric at your local fabric store, you will probably want to learn how to use a sewing machine. It isn't necessary, but a sewing machine will help you with long seams like those on a bodysuit. However, I prefer to hand sew all of my seams for my head in parts. So, depending on what type of fursuits you plan to make, whether it be partials or full suits, just plan accordingly. And remember, it's not a race. Sewing takes a good while to master, just like any valuable skill. On the bright side though, you will already be on a much higher level of fursuit making if you know how to sew first. So, get learning, and good luck!
Hey, my name is Untamed Fur, and I make fursuits, and if you're watching this video, then I'm sure that you're interested in fursuits as well. If I could offer a tip to anybody that is carving their own foam base, if you're ready for the furring stage, I always find it very beneficial to be only taping 1/2 of your mask. One of the things you can do to improve your symmetry is to only tape 1/2 of your mask. This way, once you've actually taped up one whole side, you get every little nook and cranny. It's really beneficial for you to only do half, because that way when it comes to patterning, you will just take the one side, cut off your pieces, and then you will actually flip it. That way the symmetry will be improved. Little by little you will start to notice an improvement with your symmetry if you do follow these steps. Here, this is a sleeve for a body that I am building. This is an arm sleeve. So I would only do this pattern once, and then I would just flip it over and trace it again. That way you're having more identical parts, and that way when you have your parts all together, people will be impressed with how close each side looks. I do have another head back here that will kind of show off the markings. Every marking on this head, I only patterned it once and then flipped it, and then that way you try to see as much symmetry as possible. So I would say that that's a pretty good tip, that maybe it took me a couple of years to figure that out when I started building, but the great thing about now is there are so many tutorials out there and other makers that would happily share their secrets with you if you asked. I've done the inside of the head by the same tactic. Inside, once I've lined my mask as well, usually I will only pattern half of it, and then I will flip the pattern. You can see the seam line down the middle there, but I would pattern just one half of this and then flip it for the symmetry. And that's going to keep it looking as neat as possible. If you only pattern half and flip it, you're going to see better symmetry and a better looking head. So, happy making!
Hi everyone, I'm Lily, the maker behind Lily Fursuits, and today I'm going to be giving the next tip in this video, which is going to be references and why they're useful on heads, paws, and bodies. So whether you're making realistic, cartoony, or even kimono suits, references are still very helpful in keeping the proportions and shapes correct. This head here, it's a wolf, but the ears are very stylized and curved and not very wolf-shaped, correct? But the nose and the muzzle, I did use references on to get the shapes correct. Wolves have sort of a raised nose bridge, so I included that, and you can see it from the front more than the side. With the nose, I made it wolf-shaped, and it just looks better when you use references. Even with fantasy creatures, you want to still use a reference. There's a ton of anatomies of dragons out there, ton of anatomies of pretty much anything under the sun, which can help you get a better looking species and a more recognizable species. Even if the only reference you use is the character sheet, it is still better than not using a reference and just free sculpting. As for when you're doing a bodysuit and you use a reference, it's mainly to get the shape right of the digi if you're doing a digi. For example, with crocodiles, they don't really have very long legs. So if you're going to do a crocodile suit, you would want to make it very drop crotched and make the digi very low, which you can figure that out better using references. Even if it's a cartoon and throw references of a crocodile, it's better than no reference. With pine martens and other things like ferrets, they also have very low digi, and corgis and stuff like that. In general, references are very good for getting shapes and proportions correct. I've never really done a video before, but I really hope I was able to kind of help better explain why references are necessary. You can always message me on Instagram or any of the other makers in this video if you need help. I'm sure that we would all be very willing to help out.
Hi, my name's Joe. I'm a fursuit maker for my small business, Casual Fridays. The tip I would like to give is about safety and first aid. Fursuit makers use a lot of dangerous tools such as needles, razor blades, hot glue guns, and in some cases noxious materials like resin. It's really important to educate yourself on how to safely use these tools. A lot of inexperienced makers may see more experienced makers using things like resin or heavy liquid and aerosol adhesives, and may want to try it themselves without fully understanding the ramifications of their misuse. Please buy a gas mask when using noxious materials. Even if you are outside or have a fan on, it's not enough ventilation to prevent harm. If you can smell the chemical you are working with, then that means that it's harming you. Gas masks come in different grades, so if you go to a hardware store to buy one, tell the clerk at the counter you are painting a room in your house and need a mask that properly prevents fumes. Gas masks come with instructions on how to care for them. Take good care of it, and it'll take good care of you. Glue guns are hot and razors are sharp. Please consider buying yourself a small first aid kit for boo-boos. These kits have anti-burn cream. When I burn myself, I hold an ice cube to the burned area until it stops hurting, and that works for me. Other people may have other methods. Don't leave a glue gun on all night. Don't leave a glue gun sitting on a carpeted area. Doing so can cause a fire. The biggest one for me is cutting yourself. Box cutters have very special ways that you're supposed to hold and use them for your safety. If you cut yourself, stop what you are doing immediately and go tend to your wound. If you get blood on anything you are working on, you must discard that item. You have to throw it away and start over. Blood is considered a biohazard, and it is a gross oversight to give a customer an item stained with blood, even if the blood cannot be seen. Please don't do it. It's a really horrible thing to do. And the same goes for pretty much any bodily fluid, especially now in a time when we need to be hyper vigilant about our health practices. Don't sneeze on your fursuit parts. In conclusion, always do your research on safety practices for items you are using. This is for the sake of your health. I wouldn't want anyone to end up in the hospital because they weren't wearing a gas mask while using a heavy-duty liquid adhesive, or have to get stitches from misuse of a razor blade. Stay safe and have fun crafting.
Hey everybody, it's Fennecat, or Anna if you prefer, and my tip for you today is basically just talking about why you can't get away with using bad materials. A little stubborn me, for like 2 or 3 years, just thought that if I just had a good enough skill level, I could get away with using really terrible things. And it never worked. In essence, I was trying to polish a turd for 3 years. Now I know you've probably seen artists before who do the more unconventional art, like when they make dresses out of things like soda cans and duct tape, but at the end of the day, it's still a dress made out of soda cans and duct tape. It is not going to look anything like a dress that is made out of actual fabric, and it certainly will not feel like one. It's going to be heavy and sweaty and probably very uncomfortable to wear. And I'm going to say cheap fur in quotation marks because it's normally more expensive to buy it in places like Joann's and Walmart, despite it being cheaply made, than it is to purchase it from decent or good suppliers on the internet. One, it's very coarse. It's going to feel gross on both sides, especially if it's unlined and touching your skin. 2, it does not shave well. It is so sparsely woven that when you shave it, it kind of immediately makes bald spots. 3, cheap fur stretches when you use it, so the backing becomes looser and it sheds even worse than it already would as fur. Also, because of how loose the backing is to begin with, hot glue tends to want to seep right through it, so if you're applying hot glue to a head and you're putting that fur down, there's a good chance it's going to try and push its way through the backing, and you're just going to get random hard clumps all over the fursuit head. When I first made a fursuit item, it was a pair of feet, and I used what it would be considered very thick, it was like this, it was thick batting, which is something you would line a quilt with, or maybe a seat cushion. You can't shave it or carve it, and it doesn't really want to cut very well either. It's just like a squishy thing. And I had it for toes, and it would crinkle every time I walked around. Moving on to eyes. Don't use that plastic, wovey, clear mesh that's meant for yarn. It's actually meant for crocheting yarn into things. For one, it does not hold paint well, and 2, the holes are huge. You're going to see right through it. Don't use ribbon frays. Do not use chiffon. That is the weakest fabric you can possibly use for anything, and it does not hold color well if you intend to paint the eyes. So if you make a suit out of cardboard and tape, you can't expect it to come out looking like a suit made out of fur and actual fabrics, regardless of your skill level. I just don't want anybody to do what I did for 3 years and keep trying to make something out of nothing. No matter how great you think you are at making suits, you'll never be as good as that cardboard base will let you become. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching it. Have a lovely day!
Hello, my name is Wismi and I run my fursuit business, Wismi Creations, and I will provide you with the second tip of this video. One thing about suit making that I don't feel get talked about as much is the lining of the inside of your head. Some makers build their head on already made balaclavas, but for me personally, I prefer to make the lining custom fit into my heads after I have finished the foam base, and I will show you how to do that. To do this, you will need to grab yourself some lycra fabric, as this is best fitted for lining and gives off a very cool feeling. Other fabrics will work too, if you've got an old t-shirt for example.
Disclaimer, don't use recycled materials for fursuits that you're selling without informing the customer.
But just remember to not use fleece, as this is made out of polyester and will make your suit unnecessarily warm. Then you will take the measurement around your head and mark them out on a 30 cm or longer wide width. Cut your shape out and mark your fabric piece halfway and then quarterwise. Make your quarters halves too, and cut out this crown-like shape that reaches halfway down the fabric's width. Sew each edge together until you have a bow-like shape. Now all you gotta do is glue your lining into the inside of your head and cut out 2 eye holes and a mouth hole in the size of your muscles inside. Sew the open edges onto your fur and inside of mouth lining to leave no exposed foam, and voila, your lining is complete. Don't worry if your first try doesn't turn out seamless. It's hard to perfect lining and we all start somewhere. But I hope my tip will help you out in the future. Thank you for having me!
Hi, my name is Skins the Hyena, but you can also call me Demo the Armadillo, and I run the small business Possibilities. One of the most important things I've learned in fursuit making is not to cut corners when selecting materials. Remember that your fursuit is going to be your pride and joy, so it's important that the materials you select reflect the quality of the time and effort you put in. Things to consider before buying materials is to read all the reviews, research all the options for how the material can be used and how it can be cleaned, and also consider whether you're going to hand sew or machine sew, and then buy samples. Also, once you get the samples in, wash them and check to see if the quality is maintained after the test. See whether your samples, if the faux fur is consistent quality as the other fur you have selected samples of. See what glue is right for these fabrics and see if the thread is appropriate for the thickness and use of the material. In this process, durability is key. When I made my first fursuit, each fur I chose had significantly different quality, lengths, and softness, because I cut corners on all the materials and did not do my research. And because of those faults, I had to retire it after less than a year. You want your materials to be able to hold up because the last thing you want is for your fursuit to fall apart at a con or not last as long as you hoped. Always explore your options and never settle for less.
Okay, one thing that you should definitely know is when you're ready. Well, there's not exactly anyone to tell you when you're ready. There are definitely a few things that you should know before you are. There's a lot of different things you need to learn, like how to sew, how to pattern, how to budget, how to find the best materials and where to get them, pricing, and more. Thankfully though, we live in a time where anything that you want to learn is right at the tips of your fingers. There are lots of writings, websites, and even whole YouTube channels devoted to teaching the basic fursuit maker know-hows, all the way from starting your foam base to putting in LEDs. So basically, just know what you're comfortable using, your skill set, know the basics, and then for sure you are definitely ready to start making your fursuit.
And finally, my tip for you. Fursuit making is not a race. It is a marathon. I remember when I first got started making suits, I felt like I was racing against the clock to get noticed because in a sea of hundreds of makers, I was just a beginner with 1,000 projects in mind. The truth is, you should give yourself at least a year or so of experimenting, planning, and messing up and scrapping projects before you really get into the nitty-gritty of having your own business or solidifying your style as your own. The types of suits I make today are nothing like the business plan I originally planned for myself. I went from toonie to plush suits to finally settling on being a kimono-style maker. It took me over 2 years to feel comfortable with where I'm at and where I'm going. Give yourself more credit and don't wait for anything. You're going to see people surpassing you. You're going to see brand new makers come out the box with a perfect first fursuit, or longtime makers with a large fan base selling suits for more than your job pays in a month. And you're going to feel small for a while. But with enough passion into what you do, none of that will matter at some point. I'm not saying that you're gonna make it big. I'm not saying that you're gonna have tens of thousands of followers and every suit's gonna be $20,000 each. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you're gonna find passion in what you do eventually. And that's when it all becomes worth it. But that was 10 tips. I want to personally thank everyone who pitched in this video, and I'm really happy to be able to make collabs like this and hope to do more in the future. But this video actually served as my 1,000 subscriber celebration, but actually as of recording, I've reached about 1,400, so I'm really excited to see my little community grow. Please make sure to check out everyone who contributed today, as they went out of their busy schedule to help with this really cheesy project. Links are in the description as always, and of course I want to thank my amazing patrons who helped me make this video into reality. They're actually the ones who told me that I should do a 10 tips video, so honestly it was really cool. If you want to help me make videos, listen to my dumb ideas, or just have a cute chat about fursuits, feel free to check out my Patreon for instant access to my Discord. It's really the best way to talk to me and see what's coming next. In fact, the people on my Discord know about a super secret project that I'm partnering with none other than my grandmother. If you'd like to know more about that before it launches, do come join us. On a side note, I'm really curious why a lot of YouTubers don't do collabs. I completely get it, like group projects kind of suck sometimes, and like, you know, I had more people who canceled than who could join, but honestly, of the people who did pitch in, I really appreciate them. What I find is I think people don't do collabs because no one's ever asked, which is really interesting. So I'm really hoping I can do more collabs like this because it is really fun to get everyone together and just kind of showcase people who have probably never done a video in their life before, which is really cool. But as always, do keep it simple and have a good